You might be wondering to yourself, why is Eamon just standing in the middle of a field with a massive pumpkin? Well, it's 10 AM in the middle of autumn, and there's only two things you can really do. One is Halloween, and the other... picking pumpkins for Halloween. Now, I've never been pumpkin picking before, but I don't like the idea of just running around and picking which root vegetable you want. So instead, as a computer scientist with nothing better to do, I created a piece of software that will hopefully just take a picture and tell me if the pumpkin is up to standard or not. So this pumpkin only took me around 2 minutes to find, instead of me rummaging around in a bunch of dirt all day. So let me show you how I did it. For me to determine which pumpkin is best, I needed a couple of key market indicators to try and separate good pumpkins from bad ones. By the way, ignore the little wee cowboy hat I have for this video. I'm trying to keep this at least somewhat Halloween themed.
I want to be a cowboy, baby.
Yeehaw! Don't think I'm doing a very good job. All I have so far is that this video is mentioning pumpkins.
Why are we still here?
The first one is around roundness. Now, typically, the rounder something is I think a higher link to cholesterol. But in this case, roundness is actually a good thing, because the more rounder or more uniform a pumpkin is, the more visually pleasing it is.
Ew! What an interesting artifact.
Now, to find the roundness of an object in code, I had to do some additional digging. Dynamically divide donut into slices. Is list dog a subclass of list animal? Are beginner questions allowed on Stack Overflow? This question has already been answered, closed 8 years ago. And thankfully, someone on Stack Overflow has asked this question. Like, what are the chances that the circularity calculations with perimeters and area of a simple circle was a project that just somebody was working on? They basically used P for the perimeter and basically went schizo all over this page to give out the figure that 4 times pi times the area over the perimeter squared lets you get a score of how round something is. So now we have a score of around these orange pumpkins, and I'll be using orange pumpkins because I'm not counting something like this. This is a fucking yam. The next key element is around size, because no matter if I buy a pumpkin that weighs
300 grams
versus a pumpkin that weighs 3 kilograms, I'm going to be spending a lot of money regardless. It's kind of like that effect when you go into the cinema. It doesn't matter if you buy a small, medium or large popcorn, you're going to be spending a shit ton of money. So you might as well get the large popcorn. So we've identified that we're looking for a round and large pumpkin. But the last element kind of annoyed me because I'm filming this slightly after the video as a retrospect, and I went for the more vibrant and orange a pumpkin is. Now, sorry to the r/pumpkin community on Reddit, which by the way is an actual real thing, which yes, they do compare around different pumpkin carving techniques, but they also talk about actual pumpkins. Each to their own, I guess. But I never realized there's actually different colors of pumpkins. Wow, who would have known? Pretty much just ruined my entire formula. Now look here, there's not just orange pumpkins, there's actually white pumpkins. Look at this guy, he's like an albino, but he's a pumpkin. Not just albino pumpkins, there's also, I'm not even sure what color this is. This looks like a Glock Gamma Doppler from CS2. What pattern is this?
Oh, please, stop crazy!
So we're just going to forget all these other pumpkin colours that exist. To get this working, I'm going to be passing in an image of the pumpkin that I'm going to be looking at. And we can use OpenCV to convert this image to a HSV colour space. Which is nerd speak for he simps very much for free Bitcoin. Actually stands for hue, saturated and brightness. But the first statement's still true. I've inputted this with a reference colour for this pumpkin orange. Doesn't that make you want to walk into a field of just pure shit while kids steal all these pumpkins because your algorithm takes around 10 seconds to check each image? This might be my best video yet. So when there's enough pixels that match the colour spectrum and it measures the level of vividness and all of this nonsense, it creates a score based on the difference. I know that is also strange, but I never realised that pumpkins also come in different sizes. For example, look at this pumpkin. This looks like it got compressed by like Godzilla or something. But it's actually manufactured and designed this way. Say manufactured like it's a fucking iPhone. Sorry. What about this pumpkin? In my opinion, by the way, this is barely a pumpkin. This is more akin to a squash more than anything else. What's my life come to? I'm making root vegetable comparison tutorials. Fuck me.
Get that yam off your face, nigga. Big yam face.
Why are you yelling?
So we've got what kind of tools that we're looking for, but I'm going to be using some special trickery in Python to do so. So I'm going to like jump through the camera and do this over voiceover because it's very boring and I want to add more animation. The final cool bit is comparing my pumpkin images with real genuine ones, and I wanted to use some of the best pumpkins that I can find online. But when I asked my friends for some reference images, they either sent me ridiculous stuff like this Among Us pumpkin, this is not a real pumpkin, or a picture that I could definitely not show on YouTube. So we're going to try it and go over the image conversion extraction process. And if you don't care about that and just want to see me compare different style of orange objects to this formula to see if it works properly, just go to this timestamp. I found my own images online, for example, like this absolute behemoth, which you would need a forklift to move, but to tell you the truth, that's just me after 2 pints of Ben & Jerry's. For the record, this thing weighs over 1,278 kilos, and I'm no expert in BMI, but I think it's slightly on the overweight side. Anyway, the code here is on a pre-trained neural network, specifically on the ResNet50 algorithm, which has been trained on millions of images, and it extracts high-level features like textures, edges and shapes to recognize our ideal orange blob. This model will keep the feature extraction layer and turn each image into this weird 2048 dimensional vector, basically a unique fingerprint of all the main features of this pumpkin image. And finally, it will compare this with the other fingerprint images based on the ones that I have already uploaded and creates a similarity score based between 0 and 100. PyTorch actually has a really great tutorial for this if you want all kinds of object masking and feature extractions, because without this tutorial I wouldn't have a fucking clue what to do. But enough of that, time to compare different random objects with my formula to see how good it works. If it tells me this is a pumpkin, I'm going to throw this on the M50. The first was this butternut squash, which got a decently okay score of 39.
Give me that.
So even this algorithm thinks that this is a fraud. You are not a pumpkin. The orange that I selected had definitely seen better days, but weirdly enough, it actually surprisingly got a good score of around 76. But that's probably due to its roundness and the hue being spot on. Thankfully though, the ginger scored terribly, especially on roundness.
What the hell is even that?
Which is fair, it had like 3 nubs sticking out of it. And finally, we have this literal rag, which somehow got a score of 53. I'm really not sure how, but the hue and color coverage must have really impressed the algorithm. So I'm just going to take that as proof that it kind of works, even though we're going to ignore that it gave a rag a better score than other fruits. Time for the real test. So I headed off with this formula and I picked the most autumn looking day in the UK to go pumpkin picking. There was grey skies, mud everywhere and kids screaming. It was honestly a nightmare. Travelling at 10 AM though was worth it, even if I ended up head to toe covered in mud, because I found all sorts of weird pumpkins. A long bendy one, a bunch of little teeny tiny ones, a Frankenstein looking one. This one has to be carrying diseases. Why is it so grey? And even one that looked like it came out of like a Call of Duty camo. I swear you unlock this after 30 headshots. But like me, you're probably wondering what pumpkin got the worst score. Not just the ugliest, but so bad on every metric ever. And for some additional context, I had pumpkins that were white, green.
Green, what's your problem, Green? What is your problem? Missile alone ramp.
All sorts of different colours, and these would have failed in the colour and hue test. This thing, which looked like it got put in the microwave for about 9 years, had really low scores on the colour, roundness, because it was basically built like a sine wave. I'm not even sure how this is even a pumpkin. I should have just thrown this thing on this tractor when I was there. But of course I had to put it in my wheelbarrow to buy it. Some pumpkins were very tricky as well, because I found out that taking one picture didn't give the entire scope or the full story of a pumpkin. You take a picture of, for example, this really nice looking pumpkin and you flip it over to try and pick it up and you get a jump scare. Look at this thing, it looks like it got hit in a car crash. But in the end, the algorithm chose this beauty. And compared to the reference image, you can see the shape, the fullness. It was ready to be picked up, and you can tell because you could even grab it from its root or its handle, and it was really sturdy. It's definitely big on quality, so I grabbed it and put it in my wheelbarrow before any kid could steal it. I'm not going to let them have an additional day of pumpkin carving. I'm going to have to steal this for myself. I put too much effort in this video for it to go to waste. So I'm going to call this a little win. It's 1 to computer science and 0 for little children. What am I talking about? We back, baby, with the extremely comically large pumpkin. And it's fucking loud as well. I've preemptively brought every single knife that I've ever used. I look borderline evil here. I'm going to sharpen every single one of them, but I'm starting off with the one that I use for kebabs. Now, I'll put my little pitchfork in. Now, this is what you're supposed to do with, like, meats, so I assumed it would work, but it's so dense that I don't think I can get enough leverage with that stupid forky thing. So I'm just going to jam it down, and how well do I do? I'm going to fucking break the knife! Why am I bending it? Now, I'm trying to get a decent shot as well, which is explaining why I'm struggling a lot. But I'm not struggling, I'm just making it look like I'm struggling for the camera. I'm actually completely in control of the situation. Oof. Okay, I have to reset because I have to do a little bit of wiggling. Decent technique. The back and forth rowing. Come on, one big one. I can tell it's pretty well cooked. I know you're saying, oh, Eamon, you're struggling. Trust me, I've needed to use like Junkrat's ult just to open up some teeny pumpkins before, so this isn't that bad. Okay, maybe I am struggling. Here we go. This is the big reveal. We're gonna see how decent is this pumpkin. Decent orange, really good orange, very vibrant, but what? Wait, what's inside of this pumpkin? Oh my god, it's the Mike Wazowski head from a video that I did last year. You guys should check it out. Basically, I 3D printed a pumpkin using Mike Wazowski's head because I'm not very good at cutting pumpkins, evidently shown by this video, so I wanted to try and create one within a limited time frame, and it was a pretty fun experiment, so you should go check that out after you finish this video. Because you guys have made it this far and like, comment and subscribe, here is the actual footage of me cutting pumpkin. And you know what? It was pretty good. Look at that, orange, wow! The pumpkin seeds are like really fresh. I'm honestly really pleasantly surprised. I smell it for some reason. It just smells like raw pumpkin. Don't know what I was expecting, but it was pretty decent. And I've even tried to put the Mike Wazowski head inside of the little pumpkin, which is very cute. Hope you guys liked this video and you've actually learned something, if it was either around how to do object detection, object masking, or maybe how to quickly find the best pumpkin in your area. I'll catch you guys later.